Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
Now it is time to introduce our main speaker for tonight, Liz.
Boy, I'm Liz, alcoholic.
Hi, Liz.
Sober through the grace of God. Principles of Alcoholics Anonymous. I hate the lighting. And the Principles of Alcoholics Anonymous, and the love and prayers of people in rooms like this everywhere. It is hard to see you guys in this light. Huh? No, really, I'm going blind up here. Oh, I want to see you. Or I can't talk. I really can't unless I can see the faces. I got to know who's going to hear my secrets. I'm wearing I thought it would be appropriate to, since this is so many of you young, beautiful people, I wanted to wear black tonight because I'm mourning my youth. So we're all black. Oh, God. Okay, I better tell you what it used to. Well, first let me tell you, I had the world's worst couple of days. Perhaps it was a week. But the last couple of days have been tough, and I really, this morning, I wasn't sure I was going to be able to speak here tonight. And then I thought, the real reason I came is not because I honor my commitments, and it's not because, I honored the secretary, whom I want to thank for asking me. I honor that. The real reason I came tonight is that I knew I needed it. That I really needed to be here tonight. Because I didn't, I have this thinking about Alcoholics Anonymous. One of the things that I think is so wonderful about it is, in my opinion, why it works. Why Alcoholics Anonymous has worked for alcoholics like nothing else, in my opinion, works. And Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson and the whole wonder of that. Those two drunks, one drunk talking to another. And why I think it works is because I have this theory that's true about me. I bought a lie. I bought a lie when I was a little kid. And the lie is, as I am, I'm not enough. I was never enough. I wasn't thin enough, smart enough, pretty enough. My nose was too much. You name it. My family was poor. They didn't have enough money. I was never enough. Nothing was ever enough. And I think that most of the alcoholics I've ever known have bought that same lie. And so Dr. Bob and Bill Wilson probably had that lie going. As I am, I'm not enough. And in my opinion, the reason Alcoholics Anonymous works is that Dr. Bob's disease was not out to kill Bill Wilson. Dr. Bob's disease, if it was like mine, was out to kill him. My disease is not out to kill Jerry, my good friend Jerry. Do I have lipstick wrong or something? Yeah. Jerry went like this, and I thought, And Jerry, his disease is not out to kill Liz Lopresti. So when Dr. Bob took advice from Bill Wilson, or Bill Wilson took advice from Dr. Bob, or Jerry took advice from Liz, or Liz took advice from Jerry, it's because Jerry knew that I deserve a good life, that I deserve sobriety, that I deserve love, that I deserve to function, that I deserve all the good things and that I am enough. And so he would give me life-affirming direction. And if I gave advice to Jerry, I knew my disease was not out to kill Jerry, so I knew he was enough. And I could give him life-affirming advice rather than life-negating advice, which is what I always gave myself. Everything I ever did, it seems to me, and if I tell you my story, I think you'll agree, was about dying. Everything I did was about dying, and in many ways. I think there are many ways to die, at least there was for me. I think you can die while breathing. And by the time I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, when I was 26 years old, which was 41 years ago, I turned, in January, I turned 26, and I'm 67 today. Love to tell you that I'm 41 years sober, but it wouldn't be true. My sponsor used to say, you know, tell him you're 41 years sober. Well, 41 years, it wasn't necessary for you to take a drink. You took one, but it wasn't necessary. Which is kind of true. And I will tell you that story if I make it a day at a time. March 1st, I will have come back from a horrendous, horrible slip, 25 years. 25 years of sobriety since a slip is like, makes the parting of the Red Sea a cheap trick. I'm serious. I'm dead serious. Because over those 41 years, I've seen a lot of people go out. It always frightens me when we talk about slipping that the newcomer comes in and this one slipped and this one slipped and that one slipped, and I'm certainly not putting it down since I slipped. But we send a message, it looks like we send a message that you can slip and come back. I laugh when people say, oh, if I ever slipped, I wouldn't come back, as if you'd have a choice. As if you'd be alive to make the decision or not locked up to make the decision. Because when I slipped, I made a list of everybody I knew with long-term sobriety like I had when I went out. And 9 out of 10 of them are dead. Really good people. Very, very good people. But anyway, if I'm a little scattered tonight, I was going to tell you it's because I have gallstones and I'm in pain, but I've always been scattered. Most God. So easy to fool yourself, you know? It really is. It's just so easy to fool yourself. So I better try and tell you what it used to be like and what happened and what I'm like now. I come from New York originally, but the family moved to Downey, California. I didn't know I was going to have so long. That's why you're going to have to hear this Downey story. And we moved to Downey, California from New York. My father is a Russian, or was a Russian-English Jew. My mother was a Puerto Rican, so you've heard it a million times. Those of you who know me, I am a Jewrican. And in Downey, truthfully, there were two major things they didn't like. One was Jews and one was Puerto Ricans. At least that's how it was the year we moved there. I think it's changed a little, but it was definitely like that. So I moved into a bigoted town, not knowing the difference, not knowing why. People, I had a young girlfriend who I used to go over and play at her house when I was young, and one day I went over and she said, "You can't come over here anymore." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Because my mother says I can't play with you because you're a Jew." I didn't understand that at all, because by then my parents had gotten a divorce and we were nothing. We weren't Jews, we weren't Puerto Rican, my mother had converted to Judaism when she married my father. But when they got a divorce, we became nothing, except I identified as a Jew. And but that's how Downey was. And I was fat, and I had this hook nose, and the kids called me hose nose, and I would sit in class with this hand, you know, over my nose to the profile, so they wouldn't, the boy I liked wouldn't see it. you know, that I had a hook nose. I don't know what I thought, that I could just hang like that forever. And I wrote poetry about my nose and how yeah, all the time, how I wished it would fall off my face. And they didn't have, nose jobs weren't like they are now, you know, part of what you do. And you get your diploma in a nose job. But anyway, so that's who I was. And then when my parents got a divorce, we became that poor family too, in sort of a decent neighborhood. And all the other kids in those days, there were carpets on the floors and drapes on the window, and that was a sign of wealth and nice furniture, and we had no carpets and no drapes, and I was so ashamed of where we lived. Oh my God, the shame was just huge. And I thought for many years how sad that was, that poor little girl, that fat poor little girl. I mean, I drank a lot of drinks over that fat poor little girl. Actually, I started drinking when I was that fat poor little girl, but drank a lot over her and thought how sad it was. And it can imagine what a shock it was after having worked the steps a little in an inventory to discover that that sad little girl had lousy values. And I don't know where she got them. I don't know where I learned at that age that money mattered, and that would become the essence of a human being, or that the way your nose was going to give you any happiness. Obviously, I've had a nose job. I say obviously because I do think it's a fabulous nose today, but I did get a nose job, and I like to share that the only real change was I couldn't breathe anymore. I breathed before the nose job. You know how some people have a nose job because they don't breathe? No, I breathed fine with that hook, but turned out I was breathing through that bump. But I stopped breathing, and I like to talk about when I was dating and with my new nose. Some guy would kiss me, you know, and I'd back up and I'd be panting, and he'd think he was so hot, and it was just that I couldn't breathe. I couldn't keep my mouth closed, you know, it's air, and he'd just be overwhelmed by his abilities. But silly stuff, silly stuff. Anyway, but I also had a stepfather at that time after my mother and father got a divorce. My father went back to New York City, got a stepfather, and he worked in the steel mills, and the way he responded to everything was a hit in the mouth. I mean, he hit us all, he beat us all, and beat my mother, and I thought that's the way it was. Anybody who tells me that today, I look right at him and tell him how sorry I am. Because it is never okay to hit another human being. It is never okay to hit another human being. But that's the way it was. And by the way, I hasten to add, that did not cause my alcoholism. Alcohol did. And it didn't cause my drug addiction. Drugs did. But anyway, that's something else. But I'm just telling you about my human condition and the feelings. Bye, Brad. The feelings that it caused. It caused a lot of feelings. You won't be the first man who ever walked out on me. But all of these things I'm telling you about did cause the feelings. And it was the feelings I didn't want. All of those were feelings I didn't want. So my stepfather, as I said, beat us. And when I was about 12 years old, he beat me one time too many. And I knew in my soul that if he hit me again, I was going to kill him. And you know, when I read about some kid blows a parent away, I always say, I wonder what the whole story is. I always say that. Because I know that if I'd have had a gun and he'd have hit me one more time, I'd have killed him. I couldn't take it anymore. I wouldn't take it anymore. And it was then that I learned not to cry. I wasn't going to cry no matter what. Well, then of course he'd beat me more. But I went to my mother and I said, if he hits me one more time, I'm going to kill him. And I went down the street to this family that had a habit of taking in strays. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have liked to have told you that I had never been loved. But the truth was, I had been. There had always been Eskimos along the way on my road. I think if any of you are kind of honest with yourself, I don't know that there's anybody who's never found anybody who reached out a hand, who loved them. Perhaps not the way we wanted, but most of us has had love some way. I certainly had. In spite of everything, I found love from people. And this family loved me, and they let me move in with them. And they had a little house behind a house, and I used to pretend to be asleep on the couch in the living room because I felt safe there. And then they'd cover me up, and then I would sleep there. And I finally admitted to them that I couldn't sleep well. And so the husband, the father, said, his name was Art Gutch, he said, try a little shot of scotch. And he gave me a little shot of scotch. And oh my God, it did the job. Not only did I feel good, but I went to sleep. So my first reason for wanting a drink was so I could go to sleep. Never ever occurred to me to deal with or to wonder why I couldn't sleep. Never occurred to me. And it didn't occur to them either. He didn't say, gee, honey, how come you can't sleep? Are you afraid? Let's talk about fear. Want to write an inventory on fear? No, it was just, maybe you should try. So I tried it. That was the answer. And I didn't go from one shot of scotch to a fifth a night in a week, but I did from 12 to 26. And in that journey, from 12 to 26, it went from one shot of scotch to go to sleep, to 2 shots, to 3 shots. And then it was not just to go to sleep, but to talk to you, to make love to you, to wait and see if you were going to phone me, because I couldn't bear waiting for that call. And none of you women have ever done that, I'm sure. You know, just passed out, and then the phone finally rings, and you answer it and say, oh, playing tennis, I've been out playing tennis. Not thinking of you at all. Don't you know my life depends on your calls? So I used it for all of those things and all those feelings always. Always, always, always. And then by the time before I was 26 years old, I'd been to 15 hospitals, always in a coma. Combination of alcohol and pills. That was what I combined. That's what I combined. And the last hospital I got into, a doctor shoved the piece of paper at me, and it said acute alcoholism. And I said, you don't understand. I'm suicidal. He said, before or after you take that first drink? Because I was an alcoholic, and there it was. Both physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, I was an alcoholic, period. I told you that I had a slip, and I will quickly tell you the 2 main reasons I had the slip. One, I never really took step 1 and didn't know it. Powerless over alcohol. When I slipped, my life was fabulous then. It really was. I mean, in terms of all the things that the big book promises I had been given. But when I slipped, it all went. But when I slipped, I didn't say that day, I'm going to have a drink and lose everything. I'm going to lose everything, and within 2.5 months, that's all I drank. 2.5 months. I'll wind up back in the hospital. I will lose everything I've got. I'll be living in my car. I'll spend every dime I've earned. I will break my own heart. I will break the heart of all my friends. I will close down as closed as I was when I was brand new in AA, but that's what happened to me. Because when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I was shut down. One of my last drunken diary entries said, if I'm dead, why doesn't somebody bury me? And I'd look out the window and I'd see people walking to work, and I knew I was never going to be able to be a part of that again. And I'd see a mother with children, and I knew I'd lost my children, and I was never going to get them back again. And I'd see a man and a woman holding hands, and I knew I'd never have a husband again. And I knew none of those things were going to happen to me. And then I came to you when I was 26 years old, because somehow I had this epiphany, and I called Alcoholics Anonymous, and I said, I think I have a drinking problem. After 15 hospitals, all those overdoses, comas every single time, 72 hours comas, 24-hour comas, 10 24 hours, 572. There's no medical reason I'm alive today for a multitude of reasons. But here I am. Anyway, I came here, and it was like you said, what time is it? I said to you, what time is it? And you said, it's a horse. Because I came to you with real problems. Like, how am I going to pay my rent? And you said, don't drink. How am I ever going to get my kids back? Don't drink. How am I ever going to, deep down, the real question was, how am I going to be able to love again? And I knew I never would be able to. I knew it. I knew that the thing missing in me was my ability to love. Before the meeting started, a friend of mine told me about a woman who killed herself. I hadn't known that she'd done that. But it reminded me of the first time in AA sober, anyone I knew killed themselves. And I want to share with you the note she left. She said, I haven't the power to love and make it worthwhile. Now, what she didn't know, and what broke my heart about it, was that she didn't know that the power to love is always gone when we drink. That the power to love is never there when we drop a pill or shoot it up and destroy it. She really didn't believe that. And that the power to love comes from sobriety and from the army of support that I got here. And it really broke my heart to know that, because that's how I felt. I couldn't love. You know, I was stuck in all those feelings, and you were telling me just don't drink. You don't get it. When someone breaks up with me, I don't just say, oh, okay, I guess there's someone better for me. I know God has a plan. As a matter of fact, once when I had a really bad broken heart, there was a guy that lived next door to me, and he was trying to nurse me through it. He was a member of AA also. And he said to me, Liz, look at it this way. What if God is planning to send you the perfect guy in 4 years? What would you be doing in those 4 years? I said, first of all, you don't negotiate with an alcoholic for 4 years. 40 minutes maybe, or 4 months, but not 4 years. He said, no, really. What would you be doing? I said, I don't know. He said, getting ready. And then he said, and what do you think he'll be doing in these 4 years? I said, drilling for oil, I hope. And that's how spiritual I was. Yeah. Anyway. So that's the shape I was in. And the thing was, because it's my opinion, that the ball game is to love and be loved. It's the whole ball game. I mean, I didn't know before my inventories that I knew a lot about what love was not and nothing about what love is. I was married to a guy named Joe Lopresti on the program. He was a wonderful guy. I was the worst wife that walked the face of the earth. I mean, first of all, everybody to this day begs me not to cook. So cooking is out of the question. And he used to call me Frigid Bardot, so perhaps that'll... Because at 26, I was hot looking, but that was it. I mean, just the way I looked. It wasn't the way I felt. And when you're new, you know, it changes, ladies. I promise you, if you're new, it will change, and I promise the fellas it'll change. And just keep an eye on the girls and wait a little while, and it'll all be fine. And but when Joe Lopresti I don't know what I was talking about. I'm having pain right now, so I am trying to stay focused. And what was I talking about? Pardon me? Frigid Bardot? I was married to a great guy in AA, right. And when he and he left me because he left me for another woman. No, he didn't leave me for another woman. He didn't start an affair. He didn't leave me, he left me so he could have a wife, I think. You know, he left his wife so he could have a wife. Does that make any sense to you? Yeah. And her name was Joanne Lopresti later on. We went to his funeral together when he died many years sober. And I stood up and talked about that I was truthfully his favorite ex-wife. And I was, but at least my potential was there. Oh, God. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. When he left me, I'm telling you, I wanted to die. And I didn't particularly like to kiss him. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying that from a podium. But it's the truth. But boy, did I need him. Did I need him? In AA, I needed him. He had some sobriety, and I thought somehow he was going to make love to me long enough and enough that I could get sober and stay sober. I needed him. I didn't think I could make it on my own. I needed him. I didn't want to sleep alone. I needed him. I didn't know the first thing about what wanting him would be about, what loving would be about. To want somebody instead of need them. You know, not a thing. And how did I learn that? I learned it by watching you. I learned it by taking the steps. I learned it by that 4-step inventory. I learned it by writing down what love was not. You know, what it is not. And it's hard, you know. Jealousy, I thought, was part of love. I mean, wasn't it in all the movies and all the books? You know, not too long ago, maybe about 10 years ago, there was a woman out in Orange County, killed her husband and his new wife. And I remember the news guys saying, well, she loved him so much. That's not what love looks like. That, no. A bullet in the brain, not even close. But Joe Lopresti, I remember one time he was at the Pasadena clubhouse. And he had hurt my feelings and left to go to a meeting. And I followed him to the meeting. And he had a motorcycle outside. And I walked into the meeting and I grabbed his leather coat off of the chair and I slapped him with that leather coat. And he looked at me, and in front of everybody, he said, Liz, that is not love. Oh, how odd I thought it was. All the movies, the books, all that stuff, I thought, that's not love. So for me, my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous has been about learning about what love is. Because I want to love. I want to be loved. I want to love you back. And I don't mean just the romantic part. Jerry wants me to say this. He loves this, so I'm going to say it. I look at you beautiful young girls, and you are beautiful. You really are beautiful. I hope you know it. I hope to God you know it. You're beautiful. But you come in, and if you're like I was, and I was really pretty, and if you were like I was, I had a lot of shame going over the things I'd done, and when you get to that inventory, and then you have to write that sex part, and write down all the things you were ever ashamed of, because I was very hot drinking. And it was only when I sobered up I discovered I was a prude and behaving very promiscuously. But you have to write all those things down, and that's the bad news, that you have to write that down. The good news is when you reach my age, you take that same list and you put it over on your gratitude list. You love that, don't you, Jerry? And it's honest to God the truth. I'm telling you the truth. One morning I got up not long ago, And I looked in the mirror and I saw all the lines and the wrinkles, and I started to go to that place. And all of a sudden, it was just like God has blessed me with this sense of humor that tickles me when I'm by myself. Because all of a sudden, I just looked at myself in the mirror and said, get over it. You had your turn. You know, what must you have? Forever? I'm glad to see the young, beautiful girls. And I hope that some of the things I learned, you'll learn earlier. You know, it sounds so corny and sounds so old lady-like. You know, I hope you young folks. But I do. And I think you can. I think that the steps are laid out. The fourth step was the most liberating experience of my life. I'm losing a lot of people. Am I boring you guys? A lot of people are leaving. Am I preaching? No. No. Oh. No, I don't do threesomes. It's two people. I always believe you give to the needy, not the greedy. Sort of like the Salvation Army. I don't know. I do feel a little scattered, and it's almost like, you know, last night at Brentwood, there was a major music celebrity who spoke, and he talked about having this creativity and sobriety too. And I have people that I've met and loved that are so fearful that sobriety will take away their creativity. And it takes everything I've got. I just want to shake it into them. I want to push it at them. I don't have the words to explain what I've seen with my own eyes. I've seen the cripples walk and the blind see and the deaf hear, and the people that never believed they could make a dime become wealthy. Not that that means anything other than the manifestation of what is possible in sobriety. That's what's possible. You know, when you come in and they say to you, if you keep drinking, or at least they used to, you know, and you haven't lost your wife, or you haven't lost your husband, or you haven't been to 15 hospitals like me, or you haven't lost your kids, or whatever, and you keep drinking and using, add the word yet. But flip that coin. If you're sitting in a meeting, and someone gets up and they tell you this dazzling story about, you know, they became famous, or they became this, or they got rich, or they fell in love, and they've been married now for 20 years to the same sober lady, and they have sober friends and sober kids and sober everything. And everything is wonderful, and you're sitting there and you're still living alone, and you're 10 years sober, for God's sakes. If you stay sober, add the word yet. If you don't have it now, add the word yet in sobriety. I promise you, all of the promises come true. More importantly, and I don't know if I can articulate this the way I'd like to pass it on to you. In meditation, I discovered a truth that I could see manifest in my life. God has always said yes to me. Always. He's either given me exactly what I thought I wanted, or he took away the need entirely. And that's a yes. If I'm not wanting it, if I'm not needing it, it's the same as being given it. Does that make any sense to you? So when I don't get what I think I need, now there's a quiet voice in me that says, because the day's going to come, Liz, when you're not going to want it, and you're not going to need it, and it's always manifested for me, always. And you don't know that. If you fall in love with someone and you feel that's the only person in this world that can mean anything to you. And I'll tell you something, with all the spiritual talk, with all the inventories, there's two major things that people can't take emotionally. heartbreak and money fears. They seem to go hand in hand. I think it's because we believe that money makes up for the heartbreak. I don't know. But those two things seem to trouble people the most, cause them the most pain. Heartbreak can be loss. You know, as sad as I was and as much grief as I had over my mother, my father, my sister, and my brother dying in my sobriety, people I loved, dying in my sobriety, it wasn't the kind of ego pain that being dumped was. Do you understand? There's a difference. That ego pain, and for me, ego, the way I know the difference between ego and self-worth is simple. It's so simple. Ego is when I worry about what you think of me, and it'll separate me from you. It'll have me not wanting to tell you the truth about myself. It'll have me pretending to be something I'm not. And if I have this image over here, and you walked over here, and you hugged my image, and I'm here, I don't feel it. I don't feel it. So I gotta be me in order to feel it. And anyway, let me tell you quickly. Oh, it's time to quit, isn't it? 9:25? No, I never, no souls saved after the time, after the bell. I'm going to have surgery Monday morning. It's not a big thing. Bye-bye. It's not a big I mean, they could have a babysitter, who knows? I'm taking it personally. They may have gotten a text that their grandmother's going, who knows? But anyway, I'm going to have surgery Monday. It's not a big thing. It really isn't a big thing. You know what scares me more than anything else? I don't want them to pollute my sobriety. I don't even want it for a damn day. I don't. They could operate without giving me anything. I never thought I would love feeling so much that I wouldn't want to give it up for a day. It's not that I'm frightened about my sobriety, because I've got an army. I have an army. And I'll have the surgery. It's minor. I'll go home on Tylenol. I'm sure I can make it on Tylenol. And if not, my daughter will give me whatever I have to have for a day or two. It's that I don't want to be lost to me even for a day. The days are so damn precious. They mean so much to me now. I wish I could have been feeling like I'm more here right now. I don't know what's going on with me exactly. It's not an ego thing. I'm going to be 25 years sober March 1st. 9 out of 10 of my friends that drank are dead. And I hope that if there's one person here who will believe that even if AA doesn't work, even if it didn't work and you're an alcoholic and you're an addict, you can't use, you can't drink. Because death is the easiest thing that can happen to you. It's the death while breathing that's so painful. Please stay. Please wait until you break past that ego into the sunlight, because it is there. And all of you Monday morning, say a little prayer for me, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I don't not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst, then one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. Out, in, oop, out, in, up, down. And then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right. But I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.